Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and recently I published a video criticising Starmer's specific approach to Brexit at the moment, but also pointed out how his general strategy wasn't failing as some people think. Now in this video I'd like to comment on the Labour leader's latest article where he has set out Labour's stalls on exactly how they're going to be different to the Conservatives. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, as I've said before, Labour have begun their recovery from the carnage, quite frankly, of 2019 fairly well. Starmer has less power in Parliament than any Labour leader in my lifetime. And he has less reach in the media as well, thanks to the Conservatives' aggressive bullying of the parts of the media that aren't paid for by Tory oligarchs. The polls make for very uncomfortable reading right now. But there are a number of factors contributing to this. Firstly, people think that Boris Johnson has finally got a grip on the pandemic. So current voting intentions are skewed by the fact that people wouldn't want to risk an unknown group of people taking over the country just at the time when they think there is light at the end of the tunnel. This will not last. I will remind people that the same Prime Minister who's saying we're nearly over it now said we would be over it by last summer. And well, actually, initially he said we wouldn't even bother with it. We're just going to take it on the chin. It'll be fine. It'll sweep through. There we go. Sorted. Then he said, oh, yeah, we're going to have to deal with this. But it'll be dealt with by summer. It'll be fine. Over summer, he said, yeah, we've done it now. It's fine. Then autumn came along. Oh, all right, we've got to do it again. Don't worry. It'll be over by Christmas, though. You know, are we really going to believe him? I'm not going to believe him. The second thing is the only thing to beat the government over the head with at the moment is Brexit. And Starmer is toning that down right now in order to avoid divisive and pointless arguments in both the Labour movement and the wider population. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it is what it is. And it's not helpful where the Scottish elections are concerned to take this stance, but he is focusing on the next Westminster elections. I think the third thing to point out is, of course, Labour are also still rebuilding. Changing the leader doesn't change the party structure overnight. It's not just a case of appointing the right people, which you could do overnight, into key positions at the top of that structure, but it's all across the country as well. The local constituency parties are also readjusting. Activists are deciding whether they would like to remain active. Some are deciding that they don't. Ones who previously didn't under the last leader are deciding that they will now. But whatever the situation is now, what matters is whether or not Labour are going to be fit to challenge in 2024. And I mean 2024. Keir Starmer has written an article in The Guardian, technically The Guardian, I was going to say The Observer, but it did come out on Saturday, to set out his offer to the voting public, which I'll get on to. But he also said that he intended to be ready for 2023. There won't be a 2023 campaign, not unless he messes up big time. But it is important to be ready for that. Now, the reason is that it is accepted political wisdom in the UK that you trigger a general election after 4 years. If you are confident of winning. The law says you have to have a general election after 5 years, but a party in government that's confident of winning will have it after 4 years. And this is because you are forced to have a general election after 5, and if you wait the full 5, something could go wrong in that last year. It might even be out of your control, or it may not, but some disaster happens. At that point, people will start to think maybe it's time to change government. You know, you will then go from a party in whom the population have confidence to one they'll take a risk and vote you out. This completely knackered Labour in the late 70s when I was just a nipper, still totally unaware of politics. Basically, a party only waits 5 years when it's on its way out. If the Conservatives decided on the 2023 general election, it would be a very bad sign for Labour. So Labour need to be ready to win the confidence of the public in 2023, not because there might be a general election, but to stop the Conservatives triggering one before Labour are winning and nick a meal ticket right up to 2028. Also, if the Conservatives don't trigger a general election in 2023, it will give a psychological boost to Labour and a blow to the Conservatives, because you never wait the full 5 years unless you lack confidence of winning a year earlier. If the Conservatives wait that full 5 years, it is a sign that they can't be sure of retaining power. They're unsure of themselves. They're on unstable ground. If you look at general elections from the past 100 years, you go back further than 100 years, but let's just focus on 100 years of British politics. If you look at the elections where a party went to the polls after 5 years, not less, but 5 years, and still won, you basically have Labour's Clement Attlee in 1950. So he won the election after the Second World War. Technically, he won the general election at the end of that in 1950, but his majority was so weak that he couldn't hold on to power. There was another general election a year later and he lost that badly. There was John Major in 1992. That was basically the only genuine case of where a government remained the government after that general election. So that was 5 years later. He won, and he won handsomely. But they did fear losing. That's why they went for the 5 years and didn't decide to do it a year earlier. And in fact, had they done it a year earlier, they may have lost. Now, technically, you could say there was David Cameron in 2015, but the government beforehand was a coalition, so it still meant a change of government. And the decision not to go to the polls a year earlier wasn't strategic. It was because that was the rules of the coalition. They made that pact that it would last for the full 5 years. So it wasn't down to strategic thinking. And that's it. That is it in 100 years. Whenever a party has gone to the polls, the full 5 years later, on every other occasion, they've lost power. And as I say, even 2 of those 3 occasions, they still lost power, or that specific government did. And both the senior members of the Conservatives and Labour will be conscious of this. But, of course, there are multiple elements to Labour being ready by then. And a lot of that work is going on under the bonnet, so to speak, in terms of internal repairs on the party itself. If you're inside the Labour Party paying attention, you'll see these things. If you're not, you won't know they're going on. Most people won't see that, which is a good thing, actually, because it gets very messy internal party politics. Now, part of that being ready will be to have a Brexit position wholly different to the Conservatives. The Tory-like Brexit policy of Jeremy Corbyn will not do. I mean, it can't do now because Brexit's happened, but we don't know exactly what that position is going to be because they're not judging the time to be right to express it. We do not know what Labour's firm Brexit stance is going to be, other than what they've already expressed, which is they want closer relationship with the EU than the Conservatives are willing to, offer. So anyway, there we go. Not keen on that at the moment. We'll move on. I'll just have to wait until they do want to talk about Brexit more. But what about everything else? So Starmer has been criticised for being too cautious. Is he though? Been hard to argue against it before now, because you could think to yourself, well, will his pitch to the country be simply, well, we're going to do everything the Tories say they'll do, because you seem to like that, but we will do it competently, because I'm not an idiot, and we keep our promises as well, so we will actually follow through. Now, that is arguably a better offer to the public, but will it be believed? That would be the cautious approach. The cautious approach would be, people like these policies that the Tories have, so we will adopt the same policies, but we will convince the people we'll be more competent at delivering them, and we don't lie. But we needn't worry that this will be the case now. Starmer's article makes it crystal clear that what he is going to offer is nothing less than a very different economic model for the country. He's specifically talking against tinkering. We're not talking about tinkering. Now, there are some aspects that will be tricky. For example, he talks about the need to move away from short-term decisions. This would be fantastic, but will it stand up to against political reality? The reason why we make so many short-term decisions in this country is not just because Tories are thick and lazy, it's because the democratic system encourages it. This is how it plays out. You invest a crap load of money into a long-term project. You will take responsibility for the money being spent. Now, because you've spent it, the media will be going, oh, this minister cost massive increase in spending during their time in this department. But you don't get the credit for what that money's spent on, other than the jobs in the meantime, because it might take 10 or 20 years before it comes to fruition. At which point, some other buggers are in charge then, you're out of office, and then they take the credit. So how does such a project help you get elected next time? So what you often find happening is you might commit to spending on large projects at the start of a parliament, but only if people are going to see some return within 3 or 4 years. Even if it's a longer term project, you need to have some return in 3 or 4 years. No good if the payout is after the election. As you move further into the parliament, you have less and less time to achieve anything worthwhile, and so you switch to very short-term gains that don't deliver at all in the long term. Sticking plasters to society's ills. Now, Starmer is arguing against this, quite eloquently, but can he achieve it? If he convinces the public to vote for him, forms a government, and puts it into operation, we can say, yeah, he did what he said he would do. But will he be hit by political reality for the next general election? Because the Conservatives and their insidious media backers will point to Labour tax and spend throughout the Parliament. They will be shouting it from the rooftops. If Labour talk about the benefits being in 10 or 20 years' time, re-election could be very tricky. Now, I know the Tories do the same thing with the benefits of Brexit, but they have the media reinforcing that view for them. This is not a luxury available to Labour. So what we have in this article is Labour's stall being set out as being the polar opposite of what the Conservatives will represent. This is good. It shows that he is not going to be cautious after all. He's not going to be meekly trying to be a more credible version of the Conservatives. What is being presented is kryptonite to Tories, in fact. But how to deliver it? Because if Starmer does what some other Labour leaders have done in the past and puts these things into place, but then loses the next general election, the Conservatives will take credit for what they can and dismantle the rest overnight. Easy for the Conservatives to adopt what might be popular, say that the project was failing. Well, you know, they had the right idea, but it was a complete shambles. Just as well you voted us back into power because we rescued the project, brought it in, and now there we go, we've done it, we get the credit. And with our big brains and our good business sense. And Labour goes back to winning one election every generation and then disappearing for another generation while they have a civil war to stop them getting bored. Now, the only way this plan works is if you stop the Conservatives immediately coming back and wrecking it all. And how do you do that? Some of you will see this coming a country mile off, I imagine, because there'll need to be three planks to Labour's strategy. One, how to be clearly different to the Conservatives. This article does a good job of setting that out. There's no detailed policies of how they're going to do it, of course, but that can't come just yet. But it does have clear aims, ones that can't be fudged. Two, how to clearly distinguish from the Conservatives in terms of international policies, which is going to have to include Brexit. What will Labour do to put the UK back on the map, so to speak? And three, electoral reform. Now, we know that Starmer intends to have clear policies on electoral reform. He discusses this regularly. But what is that electoral reform? Will he adopt a progressive alliance for the next general election in order to maximise power and then deliver proportional representation? Or will he try and go it alone, risking it all, and even if he wins, only going ahead with the more complete devolution that he's promised and that AV crap that the Lib Dems tried for a decade ago? That we don't know yet. But if he does go for the former, if he goes for the progressive alliance, then that maximises the chance of getting rid of the Tories and then goes for proportional representation, then he not only increases the power of progressive MPs in Parliament, meaning that his transformative politics become easy to implement, but he also stops the Conservatives grabbing that power back straight away. So no matter what I talk about when it comes to Labour's plans or what they need to do, if they want to succeed, it ultimately comes down to getting rid of first past the post. Because even if they come to power, nothing they do can last if the Conservatives come straight back in. It can take years to build something. It takes no time at all to smash it down with a hammer. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.